Today on Upfront, what a week in Washington. A special counsel now probing possible connections between President Trump's campaign and Russia. Next, Democratic Congressman and former prosecutor Ron Kind on what's known about the investigation, plus political fallout for the president. Then, Paul Ryan's legislative agenda. Will big issues like tax reform move forward while the White House swirls in chaos and controversy? Plus, Tommy Thompson's legacy 30 years later. Today, the event marking the former governor's achievements.
Covering the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Up Front with Mike Goucher.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Up Front. The president calls it a witch hunt. He's referring to the investigations of possible ties between his campaign and Russia. A bombshell report last week said that President Trump asked former FBI Director James Comey to let go of the investigation of former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, and that Comey made notes about his conversation with the president. The president denies he made that request. The probe is now in the hands of a special counsel. Former FBI Director Robert Mueller was named to the job last week. This is a tumultuous time on Capitol Hill, and we're talking more about this today with Wisconsin Democratic Congressman Ron Kind of La Crosse. Congressman, it's good to have you back on the program, and let's begin with what the president had to say about what's been happening. He said it's the single greatest witch hunt in political history. What do you think about that?
Well, I think, Mike, the investigations need to go forward. I'm very happy that the Attorney General's office did appoint a special prosecutor. Bob Mueller has a lot of credibility on Capitol Hill. Bottom line is we need to get to the bottom line of all this. And it's just a terrible distraction right now, too, when we ought to be working on the people's business here in Washington, figuring out ways to make sure that we're expanding economic opportunities for people back home. Instead, we're focused on all these investigations. So they're important. Any type of foreign government interference in our election process is an all-hands-on-deck moment. It should be a nonpartisan issue. And now with Bob Mueller heading up the investigation, they can be able to do this in an independent and fair fashion, get the facts, and then we'll deal with it accordingly.
We'll talk about some of the key questions in that investigation, but I do want to ask you about something the president said. He said this is dividing the country, and you talked about your desire to see us move forward with the people's business, and yet this is an investigation that could conceivably go on for years. Does this, in fact, divide the country and prevent us from doing the people's business?
Well, it's going to be a challenge for Congress. We're going to have to walk and chew gum at the same time. I mean, there are things in the healthcare system that we need to fix. Bring down healthcare costs, make it more affordable for all Americans. I'd love to take a run at the tax code. It's way too complicated. We need to simplify it, make it more competitive and fair for people back home in Wisconsin. Love to do an infrastructure investment bill so we can start rebuilding Wisconsin and America again. But, these investigations need to proceed. We need to find out about foreign interference in our election process, take steps to ensure it doesn't happen again, and any possible collusion that some Trump associates might have had with Russia as well. And this doesn't even get to the issue of the president sharing classified information with Russians in the Oval Office. He's got to understand that the Russians are not our friends, they're not our allies, they are not to be trusted. This is going to make it difficult for us to get the cooperation we need from the Middle East allies and friends on counterterrorism activities. And we also need some assurance that somehow this is not going to happen again in the future by the president or anyone else in his administration.
Are you worried about that, about something like this happening again?
Well, it just seems he's taken a very cavalier attitude to the presidency itself, but also the handling of classified information. We need to be working with our allies overseas to enhance our security, to intercept terrorism activity before they have a chance of doing us harm. And when the president kind of flippantly shares this information with Russians of all people, it tells our allies in the region that we are not to be trusted with this because lives could be on the line as far as those collecting this information for us. So we're going to need some assurance from the White House what exactly was shared, the extent of the damage, and what steps are being taken to ensure that the President of the United States doesn't share classified information to people who are not supposed to have it.
You just said that the president has taken sort of a flippant approach to some of the responsibilities to go with this job, and that raises a larger question. Some of your Democratic colleagues have been very, very critical of the president. Are you confident in his abilities to carry out the responsibilities of that office?
Well, he hasn't made the pivot yet from campaign mode to being president, and an opportunity to start bringing this country back together again and finding some common ground that we can work on together to revitalize the economy, making sure we're not leaving anyone behind, fixing the problems we still have in the healthcare system, the infrastructure investment. That's hard because we got to find a revenue source to pay for it all. And that's going to require some tough decisions as well. And the president needs to start stepping into that role and providing leadership and reaching across the divide that's been created in America right now and really start bringing people together again. But when he's off every week, having another campaign rally and attacking people, whether it's in public or through his daily tweets, it seems, it makes it very hard to develop the trust and the type of relationship that we need with our president in order to move forward and get things done.
Congressman, I want to ask you about NAFTA. The president said this past week, or representatives of the president said they're going to renegotiate the NAFTA agreement, the North American Free Trade Agreement. You said in response to that NAFTA does have some serious flaws, but quoting your press release, you said you're concerned that the administration lacks a comprehensive plan for renegotiation. What do you mean by that? What are your concerns?
Well, first of all, I'm happy that we're going to take a run at renegotiating NAFTA. I think it was a flawed agreement to begin with. There are opportunities to enhance worker protections, environmental standards, human rights standards, make it fair for our workers and businesses and farmers in Wisconsin, for instance. But we're also dealing with two of our largest trading partners. So first, no trade war. We export most of our dairy products into the Mexican market right now. We can't jeopardize that. Or any of our agriculture production that we're sending either to Canada or Mexico. But I think there are some opportunities of improving those agreements with the eye of trying to level those standards so it works better for us and our workers back home. And I intend to work very closely with the Trump administration to make sure we do have a set of negotiating objectives that we want to accomplish, and that will make the trade with our three countries fair and hopefully more prosperous for all of us at the end of the day.
So you have optimism that can be achieved, briefly?
Well, I've had a lot of meetings with the Trump trade team so far. One of my advice to them is first see what was negotiated in the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, because Mexico and Canada were a part of that. And they agreed to a lot of this stuff within the TPP, something that the president immediately rejected when he took office.
Wisconsin Congressman Ron Kind, the Democrat from Western Wisconsin. It's good to have you on the program. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thanks, Mike. Go Brewers.
Go Brewers. When we come back, can Trump and Speaker Ryan deliver on their campaign promises with all the controversy swirling around the president? And later, 30 years since Tommy Thompson was first elected governor. We'll talk about his achievements and why they matter. That's when Up Front continues.
Up Front with Mike Goucher, brought to you by the American Transmission Company.